So today I will be looking into the cookbook of Carla Lalli music called That Sounds So Good. And I'm going to start making the braised short rib noodle bowl, which is on page 146 of this cookbook. I want to make this recipe because I've been trying to make recipes that can last a long time and I can have multiple servings. And this says it serves 6 to 8. Which would be great to keep, essentially keep this food for several days and have leftovers. So one thing I really like about this recipe book is that the instructions are laid out in the order that you should do them, and all of the ingredients and their measurements are listed throughout the recipe as well. So that's just something I really enjoy about this book in particular. And so this will not be done tonight. There's going to be an overnight seasoning and marinating process that goes into this, but yeah, let's get started. Let's go through first all of the ingredients that we have. So first of all, we have 3 pounds of boneless short ribs. So I got these from my local market. We also need salt, which I have here. I have some ginger. We also have here some lemongrass stalks. The recipe calls for 3 shallots, so I have the shallots here. It also calls for jalapenos, and so I have those jalapenos right here. Garlic cloves, black pepper. I'm also using mirin. I have some black vinegar. I have my container of soy sauce. I have some vegetable oil. I have radishes. The recipe calls for watermelon radishes, but I could not find those, so I just got regular radishes. I also have rice vinegar. I have fresh ramen noodles. And then finally, I have sambal oelek. So those are all of the ingredients that I'm going to need. So let's get started with actually making the dish. So the first step in this recipe is to season the beef on all sides with kosher salt. So now we're going to set the beef aside. The next step is to peel and roughly chop the ginger. So in general, I think I could probably have used way more ginger than this, but this is what I had available, so this is what I'm going to go with for right now. Just a rough chop. The next step is to trim and deal with the lemongrass stalks. So I now have my lemongrass all chopped up. The next step is to roughly chop the shallots. So I now have my shallots all rough chopped here, so I'm just adding them to the mix as well. The next step is to stem seed and roughly chop the jalapenos, so that's what I'm going to do. So there's my jalapeno rough chopped. Now what we have to do is combine all of the things that we just rough chopped into a food processor, and then we have to process this together Scrape down the bowl a couple times, and then we're trying to get to a paste-like consistency. So. So now that we have this almost paste of all of those ingredients, I'm going to add the liquids for our marinade. So for that, I'm going to need about a 1/4 cup of vinegar, and then a 1/4 cup of my mirin, and then 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. Now I'm just going to process this together just to combine all of the ingredients. Great, now we're ready for the next step. What we're going to do now is cover the meat with our marinade mixture. And then from here, I'm just going to cover this whole baking sheet and then let it refrigerate until tomorrow. So, hey guys, checking in real quick. So I forgot to add the garlic to the food processor whenever I put all that together. So one thing that I did was just mince the garlic and then sprinkle it over the top of the meat with everything else, and so that's just sitting in there as well. So sorry about that. I'll try to pay more attention next time. But in any case, I'll see you tomorrow to finish off the cooking process. See you then. So the next step, and it's now the next day, is we're going to heat a couple tablespoons of vegetable oil in a Dutch oven over medium heat. And the recipe notes that you don't want this vegetable oil to get too hot. You don't want the pan to get too hot because as you cook off your ribs, you run the risk of actually burning all of the fond that builds up at the bottom. So it's important to keep this at medium heat and not go to super high heat for this. So I'm going to let the oil heat up, and then I'm going to add my spare ribs in batches after I sort of clean them off a little bit from their excess juices. So we're starting to get to the point where we can see some more browning on the meat, which is great. It's a great point to be. I'm gonna let this go for maybe just a minute or two longer, and then I'll transfer this to a plate and then work on the second batch. Now we're starting to see a really great color on the second batch of meat as well. So I'll give this a few more minutes and then I think we'll be about ready to pull this out. Great, so I think now we're at the point that I have a really nice brown caramelized color on my meat. So I'm going to take the meat out of the Dutch oven and set it on a plate to the side. And then to the Dutch oven, I'm going to add the rest of my juices from the marinade and all the little bits and bobbins here. And I just want to reduce this down a little bit, really concentrate the flavors. Also just making sure that nothing is burning and going to burn through this process. So at this stage, I'm starting to hear the oil sort of frying some of the bits, and I'm noticing that the streaks that my spoon is making are taking a lot longer to fill in. So I think most of the liquid has pretty much cooked off, and so what I'm going to do is add about 3 cups of water, and then just stir this together, scraping up any bits attached to the bottom. And then let this sort of come up to heat a little bit again. Great, so we've now reached a simmer. So I'm going to add the meat back into the Dutch oven. And then I'm also going to add back all of the accumulated juices. Turn off the heat. This now gets covered with a lid. I'm now going to place the Dutch oven with all of the meat and the liquid into the 325-degree oven. And as you can see, I put a baking sheet with aluminum foil below it just to catch any drippings, just in case. I don't want any horrible disasters in my oven. And then, yeah, we can move on to the next steps. This is going to braise for the next 2.5 to 3 hours. So for the next steps, I'm going to make the pickled vegetables that's going to go with the actual dish. And so to do that, I have my radishes and my jalapeno, and then I have vinegar and kosher salt. So the first step is to actually form matchsticks out of the radishes. So let's get to doing that. Now that I have my radishes all cut into super thin hemispheres, I'm going to thinly slice my jalapeno. Now that my jalapeno is all sliced up, I'm going to add this to the bowl with my radishes. To this bowl, I'm going to add my unseasoned rice vinegar. And then some kosher salt to taste. And then I'm just going to mix this up with the lid on, and then let this sit in the refrigerator until it's ready to be eaten. So I've now taken the beef out of the oven, and it looks really gorgeous in the Dutch oven. And now it's time to just prepare the last little bit of our dish before we can plate this up and give it a try. So finally, we're just going to bring a pot of water to a boil. And while it's coming up to temperature, we're going to season it generously with salt. And this water will be used to make the ramen noodles. So now we've added the ramen, and we're just going to let this cook off for the next 3 minutes approximately before draining it. All right, let's try it. Some of the noodles, some of the beef, with some of the pickled vegetables here. Oh my god. That is so good. It's spicy from the jalapeno and the sambal. The beef flavor is so rich. And then all of those floral notes from the lemongrass and the ginger just pick everything up, along with the acid from the pickled vegetables. This is really, really good. And the noodles bring it all together. Seasoning's great. Highly recommend this recipe for a low and slow dinner that you can just have and then have a bunch of leftovers for yourself. So I hope you give it a try. And yeah, thank you so much everyone for watching this. Hopefully I can keep making more videos like this, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.